The weather outside is frightful. Much better inside. Now, who could that be calling my rotary phone in 2020? Hello?
What your mother and I must know is...
Yeah.
Where did you put Agnes, Billy?
Uh-huh.
I'm going to kill you.
Okay, bye. Wrong number. At least he didn't ask me what my favorite scary movie was. Merry Christmas, everyone. Welcome back to Real Horror. I'm Tensa, and today I'm going to be looking at the original holiday slasher flick, Black Christmas. The script, originally titled Stop Me, was written in the 1970s by Canadian screenwriter Roy Moore, who was influenced by the babysitter and man upstairs urban legend. He was also inspired by real-life murders that transpired in 1943 during the holidays in Montreal, Canada, in which a teenage boy killed several of his family members. A rewrite put the story in a college sorority setting around Christmas break as house sisters received disturbing calls from an unknown assailant, only referred to as Billy. Olivia Hussey, coming off a breakout role in 1968's Romeo and Juliet, was cast as the heroine Jess. Margot Kidder, who would go on to be well known as Lois Lane in the Superman films, played the sassy drunk Barb. And legend John Saxon, Lieutenant Thompson from 1984's A Nightmare on Elm Street, was set to play Lieutenant Fuller. Billy was played by several people, but his voice work, the prominent part of his character, was done by Nick Mancuso. Bob Clark was hired as producer and director. If that name sounds familiar, it's because 9 years later he would go on to direct a very different holiday movie, A Christmas Story. Upon the film's release, Warner Brothers changed the title in the US to Silent Night, Evil Night for fear that the audiences would believe it was a blaxploitation film. But that title was later retracted and Black Christmas was restored. Shot on a budget of $620,000, the film would go on to gross $4.1 million internationally, but it became a cult classic and definite influence to John Carpenter's Halloween. What makes this film such an underappreciated classic in horror? Let's take a look. The movie begins with a POV of a very heavy breather skulking outside a sorority house. He's able to climb up the side, enter the attic, and slip down into the house. Already, I'm creeped out. This heavy breathing freak was able to maneuver himself inside with no one the wiser. I am going to refer to him as Billy going forward, even though it hasn't been mentioned yet. Meanwhile, Claire says goodbye to her boyfriend Chris as Barb has a fight with her mother over Christmas plans. The phone rings and is answered by Jess, who recognizes the caller as someone who has been harassing them.
He's expanded his act.
That whole phone call is incredibly uncomfortable, and I probably only showed 20% of it because the rest of it is far too profane. 10 minutes in and I'm really freaked out. Afterwards, Barb has a few choice words for Claire that don't sit too well with her, so she heads upstairs to go pack for her trip. House mother Mrs. Mack then shows up and the girls want to give her her Christmas present. In Claire's room, Billy watches her pack from the closet. She hears noises coming from there and decides to investigate.
Who is it?
None of this is heard by the housemates as they're all downstairs encouraging Mrs. Mack to wear their present to her while Billy carries Claire to the attic. After the time with the girls, Mrs. Mack decides she needs a little liquid assistance.
There you are.
This becomes a bit of an on-running gag that I actually find quite funny for this character. Helps lighten the tension. Phil answers the ringing phone this time, but it's not Billy, it's Jess's boyfriend Peter. She has something she needs to talk to him about, but wants to do it in person the following day. And Mac pulls out some of her toilet booze because book booze wasn't enough. Jess goes to check on Claire, but leaves when she doesn't get an answer. Where could she be? I really wish I had some jokes for this movie, but that image of Claire is haunting. I don't know. I guess Billy managed to take her breath away. I know, that was terrible. Moving on. The next day, Claire's father, Mr. Harrison, stands outside the university waiting for his daughter to no avail, so he goes to find her at her sorority. Mrs. Mack explains while hilariously trying to cover up some of the naughtier stuff in Claire's room that she doesn't know where she could be since her stuff is packed in the room. But she does suggest that she could be with her friend Chris at the fraternity house. Mr. Harrison is clearly a stuffy old man as he isn't thrilled with the environment his daughter is in, but he offers to take the two of them to the fraternity. This leads Mac to drink and complain in private until she hears her cat Claude, but angrily can't find him.
Here, kitty. Oh, God damn it, Claude, you little prick.
See, I don't need to make up my own humorous observations because somehow this movie is funny on its own. I am being told my observations were never humorous in the first place. Won't lie, that kinda stings. Over at the piano hall where Peter is practicing for his recital, Jess tells him that she's pregnant but wants to have a schmishmorshman. Damn you, dream child, I wasted that good clip on you. Peter gets angry that she doesn't want to keep the baby, and she's springing this information on him right before his recital. He tells her to leave, but he's gonna stop by later to talk to her. That night, Jess receives another phone call.
I'm sorry, you have the wrong number.
What your mother and I must know is, where did you put the baby, Betsy?
You've got the wrong number.
Disturbing. Every call Billy makes is somehow just as unsettling as the last. At the police station, Mr. Harrison, Barb, and Phil report Claire missing, but Sergeant Nash is a bit of a prick about the whole situation, so when he asks for the sorority house number, Barb lets him know.
Fellatio 20880. Fellatio. It's a new exchange. FE.
God damn, I love how I can be freaked out one minute and laughing my ass off the next. Jess finds Chris to see if he's seen Claire, but when he has no idea where she is either, things start to look grim. Speaking of grim, let's check on Peter's piano recital.
Christ, I didn't know they allowed retards into Schaefer. Am I to understand that you cannot read tempo? Can you even fucking read music?
Back at the police station, an older woman is reporting to Lieutenant Fuller about her 13-year-old daughter who's gone missing. However, Chris storms in with Jess, furious at the fact that nothing has been done to help find Claire. At the sorority house, as Mr. Harrison worries for his daughter, Barb is completely wasted and goes on about how turtles can have sex for 3 days straight. Nothing better to comfort a concerned father with than useless animal mating facts. She does get upset, thinking everyone blames her for Claire's disappearance, but Phil tells her to chill and go sleep upstairs. Yes, I'm being told we have an update on Peter's recital. Peter, how did it go? Jess returns with Chris to inform everyone about the report they filed and head out with Phil and Mr. Harrison to join the search party for the missing little girl. Mrs. Mack tells Phil that she's getting ready to leave for her sister's place, so she won't be there when they return. As Lieutenant Fuller organizes the search party, Mack gets her stuff packed until she hears Claude up in the attic. She heads up to find him, but is met by someone else after spotting Claire's dead body. Jesus Christ, Billy is chilling, and we haven't even seen him. Jess heads back to the sorority to meet Peter, but after she leaves, a scream in the park notifies the search party that the missing little girl has been found dead. Jess makes it back in time to answer another phone call.
What do you want? Why are you doing this?
Every time. It's the insane ranting and ability to sound like multiple people that makes it all so creepy. Peter coincidentally sneaks up behind Jess from upstairs, saying he couldn't stand outside in the cold to wait for her. She calls the police station to report the obscene calls, but Sergeant Nash once again treats it as a non-issue. Lieutenant Fuller tells him with one girl dead and another missing from a sorority that is getting threatening calls, it warrants an investigation and demands the number he received from earlier.
Fellatio? Yeah, it's a new exchange. FE. New exchange?
At the house, Peter admits to Jess that he's leaving the conservatory he's been staying at and wants to marry her and take care of her baby. But she doesn't want to drop all the goals she wants to accomplish and refuses both propositions. He gets furious, saying she's a selfish bitch, talking about the schmorshman like having a wart removed. He tells her she can't do it, and if she does, she'll be sorry. He bumps into Lieutenant Fuller on his way out, clearly raising some suspicion. Fuller investigates the house, and his partner Graham sets up a wiretap on the phone so they can observe the calls from the station and phone company. As Fuller leaves, he points out to the girls that he has an officer stationed outside in case anything goes wrong. Little do they know that Peter is also waiting outside. A distressed Phil goes upstairs to bed while Jess stays up, but in the attic...
Fetch your skin.
I'm already freaked out, you can stop! Billy is seen climbing down and entering Barb's room, but an asthma attack wakes her up and alerts Jess. Barb tells her she was terrified after having a nightmare that someone came into her room. That was no dream, Barb. She goes back to sleep as Jess goes downstairs to listen to the little carolers outside. Billy sneaks back in and attacks Barb with a glass figurine. Ugh, this is such an eerie yet oddly beautiful kill. The cuts back and forth between Billy stabbing Barb and the carolers as they sing the whole time gives you goosebumps. Something so horrible happening simultaneously with something so wholesome. The glass unicorn, something so pure and delicate, glistens in the night as Billy uses it repeatedly as Barb's instrument of death. It's a very horrific yet bewitching kill, similar to the style of a giallo film. After the carolers leave, Billy gives Jess another ring.
Just like having a wart removed. Oh my god.
Oh my god is right, Jess. Again, the multiple voices thing is scary as hell, but then he repeats what Peter said earlier. Now, we know he's in the house, but it's still frightening because now Jess knows that whoever the caller is has been listening to them. Fuller calls to let Jess know he overheard the call, but asks her about her boyfriend who bumped into him earlier. He clearly suspects him, and Jess and Phil begin to speculate that he is the caller as well. Peter's ears must have been burning because he calls Jess crying about the baby.
Jess, we can't kill the baby. Please, Jess, we can't kill the baby.
Peter, where are you?
Please, Jess.
Fuller confronts Jess about the call, and she admits that she's pregnant, and Peter is upset that she doesn't want to keep it. His suspicions grow about Peter, but Jess tells him that he was around during the first phone call from earlier, so it couldn't be him. Then in a very odd moment, two locals from the search party show up to the sorority house to tell the girls to stay safe and then leave. The whole event feels unnecessary, but then Jess makes the comment that the door they answered is the only one locked in the house. Phil tries to go back to bed, but goes to check on Barb, only to discover someone that slams the door shut on them. It's time once again for Billy to make another fucked up call. Fuller listens in, but then gets a message from Graham on the location of the call.
That's where the calls are going into.
That's where they're coming from too, sir.
Oh, shit.
Bone chilling. Fuller can't get a hold of his officer stationed outside the sorority house because he's had his throat slashed. He resorts to requesting Sergeant Nash to call Jess and advise her to get out of the house and not mention where the calls are coming from. Surely he can't screw this up.
Yes, the caller is in the house.
The calls are coming from the house.
You had one job, Nash. Any normal person would run out of the house, but Jess decides to go upstairs to get Barb and Phil, but makes the gruesome discovery.
Agnes, it's me, Billy. Agnes, don't you tell what we did.
A quick chase ensues with Jess nearly getting caught, but she locks herself in the basement with a fire poker. However, after hearing the front door slam, she spots a shadowy figure outside that turns out to be Peter. He calls out to her to see if she's alright, then breaks in through the window and calmly makes his way towards her. The police show up to find that Jess beat Peter to death. She is sedated as Fuller announces that he had a gut feeling Peter was the killer. Everyone then just ups and leaves Jess to sleep alone in the house. But a reveal shows that it wasn't Peter as Billy hangs with the unfound dead bodies of Claire and Mrs. Mack, sneaking down to make one last phone call. Will somebody get that? My overall thoughts on the original Black Christmas. A true horror slasher classic. I'll be honest, I haven't seen it that many times, but on my most recent watch, I realized how scary it actually is. It executes the killer calling from inside the house absolutely perfectly, only to be rivaled by the opening to When a Stranger Calls. Billy is able to terrify you without you ever having to see him, minus the shots of his red eye. It's his voice, the way he sounds like a schizophrenic, and the profane shit he says that strikes fear into the viewer. And his ability to get away with all his actions is crazy. The man is obviously insane, but smart smart enough to maneuver undetected around the house to make the phone calls and kill. I'm assuming we're to believe that he killed the little girl that was missing, which is unnerving, knowing that he has no limits on who he targets and that he just seems to move on from one victim to the next. I truly think the whole scenario isn't out of the realm of possibility even in today's world. Setting it at Christmas makes all of this creepier because it's that time of the year where we're supposed to feel safe with our family and friends. It takes that wholesome atmosphere and places a dark curtain over it to present this idea that no matter when or where, you're not 100% safe. Although, the movie is surprisingly hilarious at times. Mrs. Mack, Barb, and Lieutenant Nash are the main contributors to this humor, but it's excellent that they don't feel too out of place. I get several genuine laugh-out-loud moments from each of them. The cast is relatively small for the most part, but I thought most of the mains did a good job. Margot Kidder is probably my favorite as the lush Barb, but of course John Saxon is the man as Lieutenant Fuller. Olivia Hussey as Jess is a strong final girl as someone who sticks to her guns on certain situations. The abortion topic is a touchy one, but I like that they're upfront with it and it doesn't act as an unnecessary subplot since it shows the conflict that arises as a result of it between her and Peter. Speaking of, making him a red herring as the killer was done decently. They show he has anger issues and is slightly creepy, but one thing I've always wondered is that in the scene where he calls Jess crying, if it was actually him. My theory is that it was Billy impersonating Peter to implant the idea in Fuller and Jess's head that perhaps Peter was the caller. It works to Billy's benefit and he gets away with it in the end because everyone just accepts that it had to be Peter and no one is the wiser to what's really going on. That ending is also enough to make your blood run cold when you realize Jess killed the wrong person, her own boyfriend, and is now alone in the house with Billy. The cinematography is really well done for a slasher film, capturing that winter feel and look. The Billy POV shots are executed nicely too, not only putting you in his eyes, but also his frame of mind during scenes where he's having tantrums or hanging out in the attic. Gave my compliments on how Barb's death scene was shot beautifully, but the imagery of Claire's dead body is also powerful. It never loses its creep factor after seeing it multiple times, and knowing that she remains in the attic window, unseen by anyone, is stirring. We leave with the depressing afterthought that her father will probably never know what happened to her. I do love the ominous music that plays throughout too. It gives off this very real sensation of doom or a looming threat. It's not iconic, but it does help complement the scenes it's used in to a high degree. Finally, I'd say the kills are fairly good, Barb's being the highlight, but Claire's and Mrs. Mack's are memorable too. Not too over the top, but certainly effective. I think this is without a doubt one of the more underappreciated slasher films. I think it unknowingly influenced future horror movies thanks to its villain, setting, likable characters, whodunit aspect, disturbing imagery, bleak ending.
I can keep going.
Please go watch it to get the full experience for yourself. I give Black Christmas 1974 5 Christmas trees out of 5. But let me know your thoughts. Do you think this movie made a quietly large impact for horror? Is it a yearly tradition for you to watch it in December? And what was your favorite kill? Don't forget to subscribe and follow my Twitter and Instagram. Links to those are in the description. I hope you all have a safe and enjoyable holiday. Now, if you'll excuse me, I gotta see who sent me this. Just kinda showed up on my doorstep. So until 2021... What the hell?